allpointtv.com, and we're glad to see the count and a lot of you out there already ready for the program. And we are the program called What's Going On, and we come on Mondays. I know you would like to see us on there more than one day a week. We're going to say that even if it's not true. And we come on Mondays at 2 o'clock from 2 to 3. And you can pick us up at your own leisure because we are on a number of networks, not the least of which is the network that all these others are on. And they know we're out here, but they don't make any comment about the programs that we're doing because they know that when it comes down to the points that we're making here, particularly as it relates to the Constitution of the United States, we don't take any prisoners. We take that very seriously because we take the framers of this country very seriously. And when we make points here about the Constitution, we're not asking any permission here from these so-called from these television scholars. You know, if you put people on TV and you acknowledge them as scholars, they're supposed to have the last word. They don't have the last word here. I have the last word. And when I call their names out and they don't come out and play, that's a statement to me, because silence is golden, but not in all cases is golden. Sometimes your silence is an indictment. And when I call the names out and they don't respond, and I'm calling them out to fight over what they're saying, because I'm contesting some of the comments they're making, and they don't come out to defend the comments when they know that I'm out here challenging them on what they're saying, that is a statement. They're being quiet in the face of an accusation. What's that? Can I make a rule up here? Being quiet in the face of an accusation is of itself an indictment. And I'm indicting them when I call their names out and daring them to come out there and defend themselves. And they don't ever do it because they know. They know. I want to pick up where we ended up last week. I made a comment. John was saying that he did not, he knew about some aspects of J. Edgar Hoover. Some people even discussing that J. Edgar Hoover's name should not be on that building in Washington, D.C. It's just this, you know, these mammoth concrete monuments that they built to themselves in Washington. And J. Edgar Hoover, who let's see, he deceased in, if I'm not mistaken, it was, I'm thinking 1977. I'm thinking that. I know it's in the 70s. And they got this building, the J. Edgar Hoover, you know, building. And there are some people saying, given what they know about him now, that he shouldn't have a building named after him, because having the Justice Department building named after Hoover, who was a violator of so many of the canons of the country. The man had no respect for the rule of law.
Yeah, it was May 2nd, 1972 he died.
What year?
May 2nd, 1972. J. Edgar Hoover,
I thought it was 72, but I said 77 to be on the safe side. Yeah, 72, which was a very eventful year. Maybe that's why they had Deep Throat, who was funding out damaging information against Richard Nixon, and really was the reason why they kept that in the news, the Watergate matter in the news for 2 years, from 72 to 74, that brought Nixon down. This was the assistant director of the FBI, so I can see now why there would not have been Hoover at that point. But the Deep Throat, as you know, was Mark Felt, M-A-R-K-F-E-L-T, Mark Felt, who was the Deep Throat that was feeding information out to these two Washington so-called journalists, these reporters at the Washington Post, who has seemingly been planted there in a surrogate intelligence role in the Washington Post. And they were feeding information. This is Mark Felt feeding information out that would eventually bring Richard Nixon down in what was a well-planned, coordinated coup Richard Nixon, and I knew this before the book came out. That came out in 2012. Important book called Family Secrets. If you have some time and you're one of those readers like to have great reading in your leisure time, and I was going to be in front of a TV set getting indoctrinated. If you want to read a really good book about the more recent things that have happened in this country that will give you some insight of how the government in this country operates, you would be able to get that from this book by Russ Baker called Family of Secrets. And there are other references in that book that cross-reference other books that have been put out about the same thing, but it's well documented. And I was able to put this together before these books even came out, having read H.R. Haldeman's book in 1978. I read. I think it came out in 77. I read it in 78. And it's called The Ends of Power by one of the president's men. You remember when they had the book out called The President's Men, put out by Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward? Well, one of the president's men was H.R. Haldeman. John Ehrlichman was another. John Mitchell was another. And they were holed up in the nest. It wasn't the sniper's nest, but the sniper's nest was the persons that were firing at him from the intelligence community, because Nixon was brought down by a coup d'etat, well, I can't say non-violent, because you overthrow a government duly elected by the American people, it is not a non-violent overthrow. It's a violent overthrow without the use of it, but it's bloodless. Let's put it that way. But it's not non-violent, because overthrow a government, as happened in 74, it is not a non-violent coup. It may be bloodless, but it's not non-violent, because overthrow is a violent act. and so Nixon was overthrown in 1974. It's well documented now. But I could see that after reading Haldeman's book in 1978 called The Ends of Power, and he was one of the president's men. The book that came out in the aftermath of Watergate, the book put out by Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward, the two reporters for the Washington Post, they seemingly were planted there in the media, because if you read the book by, what's the governor's name of Minnesota, the wrestler that came and ran for the governorship, read some of his works. I'll think of his name in a minute, but he's an outside advocate of change and things of that sort. And he's written very, very well. His works are not scholarly, but he is unflinching in what he writes about. And you have to be courageous to write the things that these people are writing. Some of the person like Tucker Carlson and others, these people are very courageous. Or Glenn Beck, these people are very courageous to write what they're writing and say what they're saying in public, because this is very dangerous work. People are behind the scenes with a lot of power, and they do not intend to give that power voluntarily or relinquish it just because you're right. And this book by Napolitano is another book that comes to mind called, he's quoting Voltaire, "It's dangerous to be right when the government is wrong." That's another book by Napolitano, and that it is dangerous. Anyway, they had, we were talking last week about J. Edgar Hoover, and they had made the point, not a new point, it's been on the History Channel, that did an expose. I don't know if it was an expose on Hoover, it's just that there's a History Channel, so we're talking about some history of the Hoover family, and it made the point that Hoover family was run out of Mississippi because they were seen as a family that was passing for white. And if you look at some of the early photographs of J. Edgar Hoover, you can see that there was a textural complexion in in a darkened complexion in Hoover when he was a young man, and I'm not even talking about in his teens. I'm talking in his early adulthood. And what I came to do today, and since everybody was surprised to hear me saying that, but that's not a secret anymore. If it's on the History Channel, then it's no longer a secret. But you can read about that in Wikipedia, which I did some further investigation of that this weekend. And you can go and read about it. Or just type in J. Edgar Hoover's Black Roots and see the lineage and the problems that he had and the cover up he was involved in to cover up that part of his history. But it's all out now, and so is the fact that J. Edgar Hoover was a you can't. There's no longer the stigma attached to it that it was at that time, but his homosexuality and his quote unquote close friendship, intimate friendship with Clyde Tolson. These things coming out, and you see one thing about the truth. The truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. You can't cover up the truth forever. The truth will effectively find some way to the surface to blast itself into, public consciousness. First of all, fighting its way into the world, and then through that stretching its presence, because the truth is galvanizing and stretching its presence in terms of there being a geometric increase in the acceptance of the truth over time. And so a lot of things that were not acceptable in the past. Now, I'm not just talking about Herbert. I'm not just talking about J. Edgar Hoover. I'm also talking about this book here, booklet. This booklet has been out for a while. I think it came out first in the this is not a new book. It's been out since the 1950s. Let me see if I can get the date exact here in terms of what's in the copyright of the book, of the pamphlet. It's a pamphlet, so it won't take you a long time to read it. It's written by J.E. Rogers, who's written some mammoth works, Sex and Race, 3 volumes. I won't name all of his books, but I have all of his work. This book was first of all copyrighted in, let's see here. I think this book came out in I know it's 1950s, but I was trying to find the exact date of it, and I don't know if they would have it here, but I know the date. It goes back to the 1950s when this book came out, and he names. Since you were surprised about the comments about Hoover, and that I thought I would bring the book in, that we even more surprised. And the History Channel not going to do. They're not going to do a story on this one. Hoover is one thing, but they claim there were 5 Negro presidents when they're trying to claim that Barack Obama broke the color line and that he was first in 2008. And he was the first Black president. When this guy, if he's a Black president, he was ineligible for the role because Barack Obama's American citizenship, if he were to be born here in this country and be a naturalized citizen, as he claimed to have been, only a naturalized citizen can be president of the United States. To claim that, then he would have to claim his mother's ancestral lineage, because if he is a Black president, his lineage is in Kenya, and you cannot be a lineage in Kenya and then have your status as a Black president of the United States. It does not go together, because you cannot be, so you can be a senator, you can be a member of the House without being a natural born citizen. You can be a citizen that is sworn into citizenship, but be naturally born. You have to be born on the soil of the United States. And there are even some presidents, if you're born in, take John McCain, who was born in the Panama, Canal. I know that he ran against Obama, but you had two ineligible persons based upon their lineage. Now, if what they're claiming is about their lineage is true, then we had two ineligible persons running for the presidency in 2008, both John McCain and Barack Obama. And you can take that or let it alone, but I'm telling you what the facts are. And nobody is qualified. When it gets into the Constitution, I can tell you I'm on very solid ground there, because there's nobody in this country.
I always thought McCain would be considered a good for a candidate because he was born on a military base in Panama.
No, you got to be born. No, you see, this is the other thing. How we began to do a animal farm hedging of the requirements of the Constitution. For example, and I can read. I'll read to you let me read this part to you. They're now trying to claim that if you have a child in the United States, then that child, whether the parents are citizens or not, they're saying that child then is a natural born citizen of the United States. Let me read something to you here. And I'm going to read in the 14th Amendment and read this to you, so we won't get confused here. Here's with the 14th Amendment. Let me read the section 1 to you of what it says here. Listen to this very carefully, because all of the persons that are now taking the law that is restricted to particular language, which specifies and makes it very specific what the claims are in the document, it says this right here, and I want you to listen very carefully. All section 1 of Amendment 14, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and is a connecting word, is a conjunctive word, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, are citizens of the United States and of the states wherein they reside. They're trying to act like that conjunctive caveat does not exist. They're reading it as if it says all persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens of the United States or of the states in which they reside. It doesn't say that. It has a conjunctive phrase in there. All persons born and naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. They act like that part doesn't exist, but that's a qualifier so as to narrow down how you become a citizen of this country. Because if your parents are not citizens of the country, your jurisdiction is elsewhere. That's a qualifier. They want to act like it doesn't exist. So I'm not for stretching what the language is or expanding it. I want to leave it exactly as those that wrote the original document, which consisted of 7 articles at that time, and then the 27 amendments, 10 of them added at one time in 1791, and then 17 additional amendments were added at different points in time. The Constitution has been amended 18 times, but there are 27 amendments in it because of the fact that which they call the Bill of Rights was all added in the Constitution 3 years after its ratification. And that's because of George Mason, who demanded that further protection be provided for against an all-encompassing, encroaching central government, because central power has a tendency to go out of control because of the concentration of that power. And George Mason, to his great credit, demanded that if he's going to be a signature to the document or even be a supporter of the document after it's been ratified, you have to bring him into the tent. His persona was such you had to bring him into the tent. He's not willing to be a supporter of the document until he had concrete further restraints placed upon concentrated power. They were very concerned about that. And he is the one that would have been the author, quite frankly. Not necessarily mean he's writing it, but the author, quite frankly, of what they call the Bill of Rights. And I'm contending here, they won't say anything about this. They're not qualified to say anything about it. There's no Bill of Rights in the Constitution, because if you have a Bill of Rights in the Constitution, you have to then go along with the idea that the rights that people have are not inalienable rights, which is claimed in the Declaration of Independence. You know, you can you can run these games. There's a lot of games being played. You can act like Jefferson did not say in the Declaration of Independence that people have inalienable rights, and those inalienable rights are, number one, life. That right there kills any argument you can have that you can have the Supreme Court acting responsibly, getting from behind the 8 ball and turning it over to the state so they can all decide whether you have the right to kill. Do you have any other rights that you have in this country where you have the right to kill, and the Supreme Court can turn that right over to the states? And everybody's applauding that the Supreme Court got rid of Roe v. Wade, the ruling in 1973, and got rid of that. And now the courts have decided to empower the states. You know of any other examples of the court being interested in empowering the states?
You know, one time I watched the show called, Law and Order, and this one guy, he was Arthur Branch. He was played by Fred G. Thompson, who was he's been from Tennessee. I think he was a senator or congressman from Tennessee, but he's also an actor.
Right.
And I liked what he said, though. And I never dawned on me. He said about the right to, abortion. It was basically done by judicial activism.
Yeah.
And that's what it was, judicial activism. And he brought that. Now, the thing is, Dick Wolf, who was the producer of the series, is a known leftist. But he allowed that salient point to be introduced in a conversation, in a dialogue, in a script that he wrote.
Yeah.
Or he had oversight, at least. He's probably got sub-writers and all that underneath him. But
yeah, John, they do that because they have this idea that the Constitution and the founding documents of the country are moving targets. They are living, and therefore they can be altered according to the times. There's no reason to believe that the framers would go along with what they're doing right now. They looked at life as being the sanctity of life was what they sought to protect.
Well, Justice Scalia, Supreme Court Justice, he actually nailed it. He goes, the Constitution is not a living document; it's a legal document.
Right.
It's what is stated, the conditions are stated, and that's qualified, and that's like it's written in stone essentially.
Yeah,
that's what he said. Yeah.
Yeah, when they killed Scalia, if you think that a person goes to bed and sleeps with the pillow over his head at that place that he'd gone on a visit and ended up dying at that place, and so on and so forth. You think that was okay? If you want to believe the okie doke, that's go ahead and believe that. But I had a lot of respect for Scalia because Scalia understood the Constitution, and he was the grounding point. I don't think that he was necessarily the person that fed into the head of Clarence Thomas the things that he is now standing for, but they were very much they had a comradeship on the Supreme Court because they had similar views of what the restraints were on the power of government, spelled out clearly in the Constitution of the United States, spelled out because of the separation of powers. And starting at that point, and therein assigning certain claims that each part of the government could claim as its purview in terms of its section of the power of the federal government, not to be intruded upon by the other two quarters of power, but each one having their own separate domain within the confines of the powers that's allocated to the federal government, dictated to them by the states, because the states are dictating the powers of the federal government. And that's what you have in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution of the United States. Those 17 clauses, and then verified by the 18th clause that says that Congress should have the power then to this is the expansion of it. The power, they would have the power to do that which is necessary to enforce those powers that have been granted specifically to the federal government. You can't go willy-nilly and start talking about all this expansion stuff. And that's why I wanted to read Amendment 14, the first section, because this idea you can just come in here. I was on a plane coming back to the United States, and there was this one person. I won't call the country that she was coming from, but she came here. She had one child, and she was pregnant. She came here so as to have another child. When the child she's almost ready to deliver the child. She was coming here because I asked her what was bringing her to these shores, and she's coming here to have her baby. Why? Because of the stupid politicians running this country that don't know anything, and we got stupid people. Trump is right. We got stupid people running this country. I think
the anchor babies, yeah. So
the anchor babies,
yeah,
and then they use them to anchor the parent. If you get the child in here, then you can anchor the adults in here. This kind of stupid stuff is going on by the leadership. And these people are. I can't even begin to. If I told you what I thought about them, I would be thrown off the. I'd be thrown off the air because I know who these people are. I wrote an article today. I couldn't stop writing once I started writing about them because maybe you're impressed with what's going on. Let me deviate a little bit from my subject matter, but yesterday you probably noticed that the governor of Florida dropped out of the campaign. Now he's endorsing Donald Trump. I had written about this 2 days ago, on the 20th of this month. I wrote about what was getting ready to happen. I said that he would be the next one to stand down, but he would not do what the others that stood down have done, such as Tim Scott and this Vivek Ramaswamy. When they stepped down, what they're doing is seeking a position in Trump's administration, but coming out after they could not, in fact, rest his hands off of the nomination. They then understood the choir had started to sing, and they stepped down, and now they've endorsed a man that they came out and tried to wrest the control of the party from his hands, and unable to do that. Now they're trying to get on his team so that if the deep state does not stop him from taking office after he wins the election in 2024, as he won in 2020. I'm not here to play no games.
Oh, Rachel Maddow said about him being convicted, and then she whispered, "And he will be convicted." It's like,
they know.
So what? So this is insider information, Rachel.
Yeah.
And this is afoot. And can you prove that this is all above approach?
Yeah, they are privy to what the intentionalities are of the ruling class, the deep state in this country. That's where they're coming from. They're being told they got deep throat. There's not just deep throat that talk to Woodward and Bernstein. They got deep throat telling them this is a government feeding information to these people on MSNBC and CNN. These are people putting out what the intentions are that they intend to do. They don't intend to have Trump as president going in there because they know if he gets in there, he's going after them, using the might of the presidential office to go after these people who are in the deep state. And they're not going down without a fight. That's why you have all these different cases coming up, all of them attacking this man.
Like, see, back when Ross Perot ran, I always said, my friends and I always thought it would be great to get somebody from the outside in. But then a lot of people brought up the very point that we're seeing the insiders who have been there from both parties, even the party that third party candidate might be more aligned with, are going to turn and trounce on him because they do not want things changed.
They don't want
They
change.
want things status quo because they made all their backdoor deals. Come on, they hook up with hookers together. I mean, they're all in the same. They're cadre, man.
Yeah.
It's got a cadre going on.
That's right. Both parties are both parties. It's too bad when they have elections in America. Quite frankly, it's too bad that both parties can't lose. But since that's not likely to happen, and in fact, is not likely to happen, but unlikely. It's such an unlikely event where both parties can lose that you have to go with the lesser of the two and whittle away from that to get to the end result, which is where the people take the power back in their own hands, intended for them to be in control of the country. The people are not in control of the country. The deep state is in control of the country.
One other thing is too, I'd like to ask these people who are DeSantis et al. Of the Republican Party, who are basically trying to be challengers to Trump, basically, why did you even do this? Why did you go this far to have a committee and get the reason why? I can answer this.
Yeah.
Because all the money they get donated to them for their campaign attempt, they get to keep.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the reason why they do it. They know they don't have a snowball hell chance of get the nomination. They know that.
Yeah. John, they had a thing on, and I'll get back to my subject in a minute, but they had a thing on, I was watching something on the internet this weekend, and it had the last 7 presidents before they became president and then after they became president, the amount of money they had going into the presidency and what they came out with. And so it was showing, for example, with Clinton, $1 million. At the end of his term, $241 million. Obama, they had, with Rizzo and some of those persons putting money in his pocket. And of course, Obama's father was a fairly, that's another, the family, there was money in that family, but he came in with $10 million and walked out with $70 million. And that's a very, very conservative estimate, probably $120 million. You look at all these persons, they go to Washington to get rich. They had a quote of the amount of money that that Bush had. Bush had $5 million and came out with $20 million. The only president of those 7 they mentioned, the last 7 presidents we've had, that actually lost money was, where's that envelope? Envelope, please. The only president that we've had, the last 7 presidents that lost money in the presidency was Donald Trump. Went in with $3.5 billion, now probably around $2.5 billion. They're trying to bankrupt the man because they are doing everything under the sun they can think of to bring this man down, because they understand that they can defeat this movement, the MAGA movement. They can defeat this and put this back in to put this genie back in the bottle, so to speak. If they can do that, then it's pretty much a fail-safe plan all the way into the future, because if they can defeat this movement, as large as it is, this is a very large movement. If they can defeat this movement and put it down, then it's pretty much smooth sailing from this point. America has a big decision to make, probably the biggest decision it's had to make in this country's history, on November the 5th, 2024. And they better get it right, because they understand that people are waking up, and they're putting things. I can see it, because I know how they operate. That's how I was able to predict that Sanders will be the next one. Rather, DeSantis will be the next one to go out, and that he would, in fact, join the team once he stands down. Yet, don't forget these turncoats were trying to wrest control of this man. They thought he was such a strong candidate and good for the country. Why are they opposing him then? And I have to say this as well on the QTN running. Those that are saying, Glenn Beck said last week that Donald Trump had called him up, and he's been calling around a lot of people and asking who do they think he should name for his vice president. And Donald Trump said he's already decided who the vice president is going to be, but just checking with people to find out where they are with it. And Glenn Beck reported that his choice would be what many persons have said they would prefer Donald Trump to have selected as his running mate, and that is Vivek Ramaswamy. That's not me. Not that my little 2 cents gonna count for anything, but I do want you to be. I did put on the record, and I posted it on Facebook.
Where is it? He's kind of a dark horse. I mean, who knows anything about this guy?
Well, the other, yeah, that's one factor, and then the other, well, all of them got it wearing a mask, so we only know them once they get in there, get in there and start wielding power. how many of them, how many of them have we known? I mean, this book, Five Negro Presidents. How many of them? How many people know that we've had five Negro presidents that got in there and denied their ancestry? On the front cover of this book I'm holding up right now, that is a picture of Warren G. Hardin. And so, how much do we know about any of them? These persons are wearing a mask, and they have to mask themselves. If we knew who they were behind those masks, they'd be unelectable in this country, because most of them are nothing but these people are monsters. They're wielding power by putting on a face. They smile in front of the camera, and they're so jovial and put on this happy face and so on before the camera. Ain't nothing like that. Jimmy Carter was a good example. Jimmy Carter, came in after the election of 1976, and came in, and he was carrying up the stairs to the president plane, Air Force One, and was carrying his suit bag on his back, and carrying his bags up the steps. And this man is coming in, and look at this man. He is not even gonna allow the lessers to carry his bags. He's gonna carry his own bag. Look at this president. He is a man of the people, down with the people. And as soon as he got up those stairs and that door closed, he threw that stuff in their hands and told them to take his bags and hang them up and so on. And so all that was go read about this man.
I always thought he was phony. That's you can see the neck muscles.
It's a $3 bill. Phony.
When he smiled, his neck muscles are straining. Okay, nobody can smile that broadly and be genuine.
Right, John. All these people are frauds. This idea we've had one great president after the other, and they're going to list all the great presidents. Look here, stop it. The great president starts and stops with George Washington. That's it. And all this other stuff they've been claiming and is an abomination, and putting Abraham Lincoln as the greatest president this country has produced is mockery of our intelligence. And saying he saved that he saved the Union. What union did he save? The man destroyed the union that was in place and put another union in its place. The union of James Madison, the father of the Constitution, that union put together in Philadelphia in 1787, where they began to, throughout the Articles of Confederation, put in the 7 articles of the Constitution to be ratified later under the BS of the desires, the demand really made by George Mason. That union was put in place when it was ratified in 1788. And then the 10 Amendments in 1791, 3 years later. And what Lincoln did was take that union and destroy it with the bayonet and with the ammunition that the North had, aiming it against the sectional independence movement that was set out, where the South set out to restore the claims made by their ancestors in 1776. And look at who those persons were. Robert E. Lee just had a birthday. I saw this online. Just had a birthday, celebrating his birthday, and one of my Facebook friends was celebrating Lee's birthday. I put a like on it because I celebrate his birthday also, but I'm not celebrating it for what they talk about. I'm talking about the man was fighting a war to maintain slavery. The men didn't have any slaves. If you want to talk about somebody fighting the war and had slaves, let's talk about Ulysses S. Grant, the Union general. And if you want to talk about history, let's talk about history. Let's not be talking about the stuff that you're making up and claiming that that's the history, and I'm supposed to go along with it because I don't know any better than what your claims are. I know the claims better than you know it. And when it comes down to the constitutional claims that are being made, don't even come here with that. because you not only over your head, you're out of your mind with the claims you're making. And I'm here to call you on what you're saying here, because what you're saying is not really about the Constitution. What you're claiming is about what the Supreme Court has said, and that's an abomination on two levels, because number one, the Supreme Court is not even given the corridor of power to even make the law that's known to stand as the law, which the Constitution stands in that place. But they say that, they're not even consigned to make the law. That's the legislative branch of government. Their job is to interpret it, and they act like these persons have the right of the Supreme Court to dictate the law of the country, and that's what their training is. It took me a long time to understand that. I kept looking at what they were saying and saying they can't. Where did that training come from? But it took me a long time to understand they're not trained in this area. Alan Dershowitz is not trained in the Constitution. Alan Dershowitz is trained in law. That's a different training. And what they're saying about it, look, what they're saying about it would embarrass a very good freshman student in college. And there are not a lot of them now, because they've dumbed down the curriculum so badly. They dumbed down Harvard University. Harvard University, not the university it once was. You can tell that by what just recently happened there. But the point I'm making is that we have got to come to terms with some truths here. And some of the truths are these truths that they're using about using race. These so-called black scholars have placed Bull Connor's message in their mouths, and now they're sounding like Bull Connor in blackface. You know, all of you get mad because this boy was wearing blackface, black and white face. He was doing it because he was making, I think he was the colors of some team or something, and he was doing something that would be an honor. They're gonna make this 11-year-old kid a racist. The issue in America is not really even about race, about color. I mean, it's about, see, they're using color, but it's not even about color. It's about the use of color to hide the real purpose for which color is being used, and that is the power. One day I'm gonna go into a discussion about that, because we need to understand how that issue was used as a way of trying to act like that was what they were fighting for in the so-called Civil War. There's been no Civil War, and the war was not over what they said was over. This was a war of Southern independence. It was a sectional war of independence, unlike the War of Independence in 1776, which was the whole 13 states were fighting for independence. In the South, in the War of 1861, is a sectional war of independence. And there's no scholar in this country that's going to come behind me and say anything. If they do, let them do it publicly. They're not going to do it publicly. They'll be saying things, in private. They're not going to do anything publicly. They're definitely not going to do anything publicly on the Constitution. I call all the scholars out about that. They got their degrees. I have my degrees too, and they don't call me out. I wonder why is that? I call them out and call them out by name, and they do not respond. And their silence is a statement. It's an indictment of their scholarship in this area. If they had the scholarship they claim, they would not allow me to get away with the things I'm saying, because I'm saying something 180 degree geometrically in a different direction of what they're claiming, and I'm saying what they're claiming is wrong. Okay, so I came here to talk. I just wanted you to be aware that there's some other documents out here. I'll be going into a lot more next month, because that'll be what you call Black History Month, and so I'll be able to do a little bit more expanding. But I'll be expanding on some areas next month that be within the topical area. But I don't just deal with this area, once a month, but deal with it across all time periods, because there's no time period to study in a particular area of discipline. Every area of discipline is always open to be studied at all times. Okay, so that kind of gets me past Hoover and get me past the Five Negro Presidents. And you can update that, by the way, by another book that came out written by Dr. Bakufu, Dr. Auset Bakufu. Auset is the name of ISIS in what the Greeks call the hieroglyphs, but which the people in Egypt called the Meta Neter. Auset Bakufu wrote the book called the Six Black Presidents. The word Negro had become outdated by the time her book came out. In the, I have a copy of that book. Boy, has it gone up in price now. But George Moss got a copy when it was $5.95. It ain't $5.95 now. But her work is just a building up on the work and the groundwork laid by Joel A. Rogers. Rogers was not a trained historian, but he was a out-of-the-box historian. Let me say something about that too. While I'm on this point, I'm going to get back to my subject, but let me say something about that as well. All these people claiming that they asking about what do you have in the area of science to be making these comments about the COVID and so on and so forth. Let me tell you something. Go look at some of the things that are happening now in the medical field and see how they're now stressing CMOS, SEAMOSS, CMOS, as a remedy to illness. Okay, now why do I make that point? Because I want you to be aware of this. They're quoting a man named Dr. Sebi, S-E-B-I. He's deceased now, died at 74 years of age, died recently. Dr. Sebi was not trained in medical science. Look at all the ones that are trained. But they're now taking a lot of the things that he uncovered in terms of he was like a updated version in a way of George Washington Carver. But George Washington Carver had training from Iowa, so he was trained. But I'm saying that Sebi didn't even have college training. What he did was go around into the world and study different cultures and see what they were doing in different civilizations, that when you had longevity, what would cause that in a particular environment? What are they doing there and not doing elsewhere? And he went into a lot of cultures. One of them was the Kikuyu in Kenya, and found there was some reasons why they all look so young and things of that sort, and came out of that with some things and made products based upon what he discovered there. But everybody now is talking about CMOS, and there's some other products that are. I have the CMOS now, which has about some 90 some odd nutrients in it. But everybody's talking about CMOS now. You can go to the health food store and they got CMOS, but they have it before that. No, this man came out and announced that, and the companies have now begun to put that product out on the market. But look at how now the trained scholars knew about it, because their training is so narrowly defined that they are subjected, because of the narrow knowledge that they have about nutrition, that they are actually involved in drug pushing. Primarily, that's their training. You tell them what's wrong with you, they know what pill to suggest. And that is a formula for disaster. I hate to say that, but that's that. You need to read. You need to go and do some. They talk about do your own research. You used to call it doing your own research. You used to call that reading. You know, people used to put their head in books and read. You know what I'm saying? Do your own research. What is that? Just read.
Did you see that comedian's stand up about that? He goes, when you talk about the pandemic and all this stuff, people say, he's like, oh, don't tell me you did your own research. Yeah, it's called reading. Yeah, I do my own reading. Yeah, it's like, I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah, that's like, you nailed that.
Was that George Carlin that said that?
No, that was George Carlin's gone a long time ago.
Yeah, I know he's gone, but they play his, because he's so profound, they still play his stuff.
Yeah, but he's like, it's like, don't tell me you did your own research. Like,
right.
You can actually, you actually read something that we didn't approve of it. I mean, I'm serious. A country that prided itself on being the rights of the individual. Now it's like, no, how dare you be an individual? Yeah, John, we're all in this together.
John, the only reason that we credit Harvard University now as being the stellar university as it once was in the past is because we they don't have a good football team and good basketball team, nor do they want that, because if they have a good football team and basketball team, then the question is are they a scholarly institution anymore? If they're stressing in basketball and football, so they don't try to compete in basketball and football. They have a team. They don't want a team up there in the top 10 because that would discredit them as a scholarly university. So it would raise questions, wouldn't it? So they don't aspire to that. But look what happened at Harvard University. They're not that university anymore. They are now riding on their name. And they tried to come around Claudine Gay once they found out she was a plagiarist, having lifted the works of this scholar from Vanderbilt, Gloria Swain, lifted her works, both in her dissertation and also in some of the scholarly work she put out. It was whole parts of her work being lifted and placed in this woman's claim. She put it in the citation in the bibliography of her work, but you're supposed to, when you're quoting someone, put that in the citations in your footnotes.
But I've done academic papers. I've done hundreds and hundreds of research papers, right?
Mm-hmm.
I used to do like an average of 2 a week for a while, when I was at college. And basically, you try to make your point. You just take excerpts, you indent down, and you make the paragraph single spaced. You'd actually quote directly typed out from somebody else's work, citing it in different formats. You can have APA or MLA. Okay, usually it's APA for me. But anyway, so it's not that hard to actually base your case upon other people's findings. Yeah, it's called research.
It's called research.
You just acknowledge it.
Yeah. And in honesty too, if you're an honest scholar, you don't want to steal. It's like you're stealing from the life of the man. You're involved in the life of the man as a scholar, and you don't want to steal. That theft is so serious in the universities and the colleges and so on and so forth. They used to have such a standard that if you were a plagiarist and you passed in bogus work, they would suspend you from the university. And I will say this too. In Dr. King's case, quietly as it's kept, Boston University took back his PhD.
That was also the student who had submitted that originally had gone to Boston University.
That's right.
His name was Boozer. Last name was Boozer.
And the person that exposed it was this scholar that has written on King's life. He's an admirer of King to an extent, but he's an honest person. And he went behind King and looked at some of the things that King had written and some of the other persons that had written it before King. And he showed the King was a plagiarist in terms of this dissertation that they wrote.
He wasn't. Yeah, he actually plagiarized. He actually just used excerpts. As showing the same grammatical, imperfections and the same wording.
Yes, John, isn't that the case? That person that exposed that was Claiborne Carson. And they rescinded that PhD. You're not supposed to get a degree based upon the scholarship of someone else. Your scholarship be the one that your degrees are based upon. And I can tell by a lot of them out here doing all this yin and yang talking right now about the Constitution that they either didn't go to class or they're not trained in the area they claim to be trained in, because you can't say some of the things they're saying. Okay, so all that being said, let me come to John, how much time do we have now?
We're at 55 minutes right now.
55 minutes? Okay, fine. I can finish them in 5 minutes. I gave the president my article today in Facebook. I'm so presumptuous to give the president advice, the former president advice, the 45th and hopefully the 47th president, because I'm supporting Donald Trump, and whether he takes my advice or not is inconsequential. The moment is too serious, and the hour is too critical for me to be selfish enough to think that my advice is of such that the president needs to listen to what I'm saying. But my little 2 cents will be given anyway, whether he listens or not, and I'm going to support him whether he takes my advice or not. I would advise the president, number one, not to use anyone, Glenn Beck notwithstanding, and your choice being Vivek Ramaswamy. I do not agree with that or any of the others. There was a time for them to stand up and support the Constitution of the United States. It was being subjected to all kinds of parody by these politicians, and the time to stand up and defend the Constitution was to defend Donald Trump under all these claims they made about them persecuting a former president of the United States, and they did not do it. And now that they've been defeated and standing down, to go back and put them on on Trump's ticket and his administration would be an abomination in front of the nation, an insult to the nation. Not Vivek Ramaswamy, not this turncoat that's running now in New Hampshire still, and that's she's still running, but that's not going to get it either. Not Tim Scott, who endorsed Trump after not being able to unseat him. Not Nikki Haley, who is still running, and she will be, I think, trounced in the primary in New Hampshire. We'll see, and if that happens, then her campaign is up. She won't be placed back in there because she was in his administration before, and look what she did in the aftermath of that. Now, the governor of Florida, DeSantis, is not seeking to join Donald Trump. That's not the purpose of his endorsement. His endorsement is that he saw the handwriting on the wall, and he's now positioning himself for his tryst and flirting with the presidential office in 2028. That's what he's now putting himself in a position for. He is not seeking and will not go into, and this is my prediction, will not go into the Trump administration because he could have more visibility as the governor of Florida and then use it as a push to run for 2028 when Trump is out of the way. That's his game plan. But I had predicted on the 20th of this month in an article that I wrote that he would in fact be standing down, and he would in fact be the next one to stand down and then endorse Trump, because now they're playing chess, not checkers, and they're doing checkmate in terms of what's happening right now. You won't see him. You will not see him in the administration, nor will he be not that he will run as the vice president. Some people are suggesting that would be ridiculous because of the constitutional mandate that the president and vice president cannot be from the same state, lest that state's electoral votes not be counted, and you cannot have 29 electoral votes, which are the votes that you would have in Florida, being discounted because both the governor is from Florida and Trump is from Florida, and you could not abrogate those votes. That would make no sense. So that's not going to happen, and it shouldn't happen anyway because nobody. See, these you got to understand something. You cannot have these persons come out and tell you who they are, and you act like you don't now know who they are. They came from behind their masks. Look at how they were all like vultures, trying to unseat and wrest that control of the party from Donald Trump. Now they could not do it. They want to run in there acting like they want to support the best candidate. He was the best candidate when you're running against him. None of you were the best candidate, and the voters have decided who the best candidate was. Now they made the decision. You want to act like you didn't know that ahead of time, but you learned it through the voting process. They're no longer saying what they were saying prior to that, because before that they were saying that Donald Trump couldn't do this and Donald Trump is not qualified to do that. Now all of a sudden he's qualified to do everything. You can't trust people like that. And all of the ones that ran against Trump, I'm saying that my advice to the president, I'm not saying that he's listening to me, but my advice to the president, I'm out there publicly saying this, is that he should not choose any of them in his campaign. We got to clean house and clean the Senate up as well. And to do that starts with the administration going in with some integrity, where you don't have these cutthroats, these turncoats in that administration. All of them are turncoats. They did Tracy Chaplin turn their backs around. Give me one reason to stay here, and I'll turn my back around. Yeah, they turn their backs around. I don't want to give them any reason to stay here. I want to kick them all out. Now, Mr. President, I know I only have 2 cents worth of your attention. Probably not even 2 cents. Maybe not even 1/10 of 2 cents. But I have some advice for you. And the advice is kind of like, it's different from the advice that you would have gotten from this one attorney you have. What is his name? Schoen. Doug, not Doug Schoen. Doug Schoen is the advisor in that family for the Democratic Party, but he's a pretty honest person. I'm talking about his brother, David Schoen. David Schoen is overrated. This man was saying that he argued with John Sawyer, who is the attorney that was arguing the Constitution in the courtroom, and Sean came out. David Schoen came out later on and said he was that he would have made a different argument. It was made by Sawyer. Sawyer was making the right argument, but he got off into a tangential area when he started talking about presidential immunity. That's total nonsense. I said in my post today, nobody's going to come behind me and say anything different, not publicly. They better not do it. I dare them to do it. They're not going to do it, folks. I know you don't think that a person that's out here from in a small studio and is living in a Democratic hellhole called Flint can be this person that's at the top of the game in this area. They're not at the top of the game. I don't have to tell you. I'm showing you that's not them. And so, whether it's me or not, they don't make any corrections, and that's a statement. And they don't come out. I can't flush them out. They come out of the woodwork. And I tell them this: they better not come out. They're not going to do it. They're not qualified to do it. I have the same degrees they have, but in a different area. I found out. My thinking was they were talking this area, so they were trained this area. They're not trained this area. They're trained as lawyers, and that's why they say some stupid stuff. It's stupid what they say.
They're trained to screw people over and use the law as a noose around your neck. That's what they're.
That's true, John. I mean, that's what lawyers are. That's what lawyers are. The lawyers are trained in how to manipulate the law in the favor of their client, and they are litigious because they litigate because that's how they make their money. Sue and drive the price of products up because they sue these companies, and the companies don't want to go out of business, so they make these settlements, and then they get to charge the customers. It's a lot of stuff that goes on in the legal field. I don't trust lawyers no more than any further than I can see them. But that's their training. They're not trained in this area here, because if they were, not be saying what they're saying. I'll say this and get off the air. you have to understand that this is going down a very steep slope to claim that a president should have immunity, because what that is talking about, whether it is implied or not, what they're talking about really is King George III again in the presidential office this time, or they're talking about Abraham Lincoln, who was King George III in 1861 when he took over the presidency at that time. There's no distance between King George III and Abraham Lincoln in terms of their use of power against this country. This country that was budgeting to be a country at that time, and now the country is on its feet, knocked off his feet by Abraham Lincoln, by him destroying the Union put in place by James Madison and sanctioned eventually by George Mason and some of the others, the founders, took them off that perch and put them on a different perch. And so when you start talking about presidential immunity, that's a very dangerous slope. And we need to get off that. We don't need presidential immunity. What we need is someone that understands the root that respects and will follow the rule of law and understand the rule of law, the rules of law. And that means to understand the Constitution of the United States. And if they did understand that, they would know that everything they're doing, that Donald Trump right now in these courts, cannot be done because it's forbidden by Article 1, Section 3, Clause 7 of the Constitution of the United States. I said it, and there's no scholar in this country that's qualified to say anything behind it. That's a fact. And they will keep their mouths closed as a result of it. Okay, we don't need presidential immunity, Donald Trump, sir. I'm with you and I'm in your corner until hell freezes over. But you need to stop saying that, because your enemies will use that against you and claim that you're trying to become a dictator. And I understand why you're saying it, because they're harassing you and so on and so forth. But you need to stay out of that area. You're out of your realm. Okay, got to get out of here. That's what I came to say. Until next week, I want you to follow your dream. If you don't follow your dream, you'll never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.